Who's the weirdest person you met at your front door? My parents told me that you're not supposed to open the door when there's only one knock. I found out why. Please, just let me in, it's getting cold. The voice was familiar, only older than I remembered. Very close to detail. Lala, please. Using my old nickname was a nice touch as well. I sat on the floor next to the door, my arms wrapped around my legs. Of course this had to happen the 1 week my parents left me alone. They hadn't gone on vacation for years. I practically begged them to get away for a while. If I called them, they'd come right back, but I don't think that would have helped me anyway. Besides, I wasn't an idiot. I heard the knock and I would not open that door. When someone comes to your house, they will ring the bell or knock a few times. Most people like to play safe and simply use the bell. And then you open the door as you normally would. But never, absolutely never, should you open the door when there's only one knock. It was the very first thing we were told when we moved to this neighborhood all those years ago. There are a bunch of rumors of people disappearing or suddenly dying after opening their doors, though they all supposedly happened before we even lived here. I never believed in it, not even when I was little. This town was simply insane. Most people here were a little eccentric and unusual. Well, that's what I believed until I heard my lost sister call for me, after the one loud knock on our front door. Please, go away, I whispered. Even after all those years, I recognized her voice. And when I heard it I jumped right up, ready to open that door wide. But I knew it wasn't her. I looked through the window. There was nobody in front of our door. I don't know how much time had passed before I finally grabbed my phone and called Max, who's not only our neighbor but one of my closest friends. She's here, I said. I knew I wasn't making much sense. I didn't know how to word my thoughts. Who? Where? He answered. Ruby. There was silence on the line. That was enough information for him. You didn't open, did you? I shook my head, which of course he couldn't see. I'm coming over now, okay? I'm not sure how many minutes passed, but Ruby had stopped asking me to open the door. Hey, Lainey, I don't think the bell is working, I heard Max. Maybe they screwed with it. I swallowed. You could knock. There was silence for a little while, followed by one loud thud. When I didn't open the door, the sound of Max started shouting loudly. Open the damn door. His voice became louder and louder until it hit a frequency that almost made my eardrums explode. I didn't move, I didn't speak, and finally, the doorbell rang and the voice became silent. Slowly I got up from the door to look outside. This time it was really him. Once I let him in, Max was asking lots of questions about Ruby. I'd never told Max about the fight. In fact, nobody but my parents knew about it. The entire thing was all over a stupid pumpkin stuffed animal. I named it Jack. I decided to tell him. I loved that damn thing. Won it at the Halloween carnival. When Ruby saw it she begged me to give it to her. She cried for hours because she hadn't won it. And even when my parents said they'd buy her another toy she wouldn't stop. She wanted mine. Well, she wanted to be just like you. It's sweet. I nodded. Ruby was a year younger than me, but she used to act as if we were twins. She wore my clothes, played the same sports, and always wanted to hang out with me and my friends. When I think about it now I think it was adorable. Of course back then I found it insufferable. I sighed. For days I took Jack everywhere with me, even to the bathroom. It was probably just out of pettiness, but that toy became everything to me. So when I came home from school one afternoon and saw that Ruby had cut it in half I screamed at her like never before. She only looked at me with big teary eyes. Max put his hand on my shoulder. Come on Lainey, siblings fight, it's normal. I saw you with her though and you were a damn good big sister. I nodded. Of course, I knew it was just some stupid fight between kids, but if I could turn back time I'd give her every stupid toy I owned. This happened 5 years ago. Ruby would be 16 now. My parents have tried everything for years to find her. I believe the only reason we still live here is that they never entirely gave up the hope that she'd come back home one day. Maybe now she was. Just in a different way. Max and I used to make fun of the superstition. When we were younger, before Ruby disappeared, we once played Ding Dong Ditch. After a few houses, Max decided to knock once at the door of our neighbor Mrs. Telsky. Someone saw us though and Max got the biggest lecture of his life from his grandpa. Like it was a really big deal. My parents weren't happy either, but Max was grounded for 2 months, during which his grandpa told him all sorts of horror stories from this town. Max offered to stay the night and I immediately said yes. We got the air mattress and watched movies until I started to hear him snoring. The good thing about Max was, I never felt awkward around him. He regularly stayed over since we were little. Especially often after Ruby was gone. Having him here really helped against the silence. My mind became easier, and my body heavier. Real thoughts started to mix with dreams. I was beginning to fall asleep. And then there was another knock. It came from the front door downstairs, but I heard it loud and clearly. My heart started racing just like it did this afternoon. Max, did you hear that? I whispered, but he didn't answer. Lala, it's dark. Please come and get me, Ruby's new voice cried from outside. Max, please tell me you hear this. I looked over at him, but he didn't move. Finally, I collected the courage to get up and turn on the lights. Ma. The eyes of my friend were wide open, but he didn't speak. He didn't move. I ran over to him and tried to shake him, but his whole body was stiff. Only his eyes moved. Let me in. The voice from downstairs screamed. I didn't know what to do anymore. Max was clearly awake, but it seemed as if something was holding him back. Almost like he was having sleep paralysis, but with his eyes open. They're pulling me away. Lala, please help me. I don't know what happened then, but I immediately jumped up and ran downstairs. Some kind of instinct kicked in. Maybe it was her. Maybe I could pull her back inside. But if this was really Ruby, was she also the one doing this to Max? My hands touched the cold door handle, moving almost as if I was in a trance. I have Jack. They fixed him, Lala. We don't need to fight anymore. Those words pierced through my body and woke something up inside of me. I stepped away from the door and walked back upstairs, passing my room where Max was still lying still. But I didn't stop. I walked to the next room. Ruby's old bedroom. Everything there looked just the way it did when she was still here. My parents could never change it. Everything was still the same. And Jack was still placed on her bed where I put it 5 years ago after I'd sewn it back together. As I approached Jack, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. It wasn't just a stuffed toy, it was a reminder of my failure, of my guilt. Ruby, please, just wait, I pleaded, hoping the thing beyond the door would hear me. I picked up Jack, the stitches that held him together a stark reminder of what we had lost. Jack wasn't just a toy anymore, he was a symbol. A symbol of the sisterly bond that had been irrevocably broken. Lala, Ruby's voice echoed through the house again. You promised to fix him. Please let me in. The pressure to open the door was mounting. I could feel my resolve weakening. A part of me wanted to believe that it was Ruby out there, lost and scared, just needing her big sister. But another part of me knew it couldn't be. I had watched them put Ruby in the ground. This wasn't her. But what about Max? What about the voice? What about the knocking? My mind was a whirl of conflicting emotions. Fear, guilt, sorrow, hope. I was caught in a tempest, and the storm was only getting stronger. I'm sorry, Ruby, I whispered into the silence, clutching Jack tightly to my chest. I'm so sorry. Then, in the mirror that stood facing Ruby's bed, I saw it. Not just my own reflection, but another. Ruby, or something that looked like her, was standing behind me. She was reaching out to me, her hand translucent and wavering like a mirage. I could see her mouth moving, but I couldn't hear her words. But her eyes were clear. And they were full of terror. As if she was seeing something horrendous, something utterly horrifying. Something that I could not see or comprehend. She was looking past me, through the mirror, and into the hallway. She was looking at the front door. And then, there was another knock. One loud, echoing thud that sent shivers down my spine. Only this time, it wasn't coming from the front door. It was coming from inside the house.